okay or good in your own language, but when we translate them, it doesn't really translate that well. And as a general rule, if we start with the subject first, it makes it a lot clearer. Okay, democracy. Experts from both the developed and developing world have debated whether capital markets are the greatest threat or not. Of what? Are the greatest threat of democracy or not? Yeah? So, experts from both the developed and developing world have debated whether capital markets are the greatest threat to democracy or not. Full stop. Personally, I believe they are a threat. So why did I put the word threat in there? Or why did I rephrase that sentence? Because this is an empty sentence. Yeah? It's empty. We can put this into an essay about global warming, about gender equality, about nuclear power. Personally, I agree with it, and it's better to avoid those. This essay will argue this idea using the example of the European Central Bank and the 2012 Spanish recession when Bankia collapsed. There's ample evidence of how governments have started to make policies based on the frameworks global capital markets set out the rules for. Okay, good. On the one hand, when the economies of southern countries in Europe crashed like the Portuguese or... Okay, so we need... Yeah. Oh, the Greek ones did. Let's see. On the one hand, when the economies of southern countries in Europe, like Portuguese or Greece, crashed... Let me just pause. Hi there, Alfonso. Okay, so what we've got here, we need to really reorganize this sentence for clarity. Okay, because we've got southern countries in Europe, and then we repeat southern countries in Europe. And between that, we've got crashed. So it's better and it's easier to read, and possibly easier to write, if we just bunch those parts together. So if we put economies crashed and then countries of southern Europe like Portugal and Greece. Okay, so here's what I would have written. So on the one hand, when the economies crash, let's see. When the Portuguese and Greek economies crashed in 2010, despite the economical efforts the national governments and citizens made, the European Central Bank intervened. Okay, good. So, yeah, just a small modification there. Or you could have even just put the southern economies. Yeah, the southern European economies. Okay. So just be careful when we've got long sentences and review some of your sentences and see if you can organize them for clarity. Have a look at the advanced chapters in the sentence guide for more guidance on that. Worried about losing the money lent to those countries and without the legitimate power for... that doesn't make sense. Okay, worried about losing the money lent to those countries and without a legitimate power to recuperate it, it dictated several economic and social compulsory policies. Well, if it's dictated, it's compulsory. So we could say it dictated several economic and social policies in order to reclaim all the money it injected to solve the collapse of the EU economy. Okay, so this is a very good example of how we could just reorganize and shorten the sentences just for clarity. So let's just start off with it. We haven't, so I guess it's referring to the European Central Bank. So let's start with that. That's the subject. So the European Central Bank was worried about losing the money lent to those countries, and therefore it dictated several economic and social policies in order to get the money back, or in order to reclaim the money it had injected to solve the collapse of the EU economy. Okay, so it is quite a long sentence, so I think the clarity of your writing would improve if we, one, write shorter sentences, and two, review them and try and reorganize them for clarity as well. These policies meant oppression and hyperinflation to the citizens. At the same time, minimum wages decreased and extreme political parties became popular, dividing the society and causing conflicts. Excellent. Very good sentence there. Very good. On the other hand, the Spanish bank known as Bankia crashed in 2012, collapsing the Spanish economy. This meant two things. Firstly, good use of a short sentence there. What could we say instead of things? Things is rather basic. So we could say, this had two implications. Review the use of had, because we could have used it up here as well. And it's a new tense that we haven't used before. So this fact meant two major developments. Firstly, thousands of millions of euros from the public budget were injected in order to refloat the Spanish economy. That money had been collected from many years ago to support the Spanish, be careful, to support the Spanish pension system. Secondly, thousands of employees lost their jobs, consumption fell, then more people were fired, and so on. An extensive study led by the Spanish government stated that between 2012 and 2016, unemployment rates in Spain reached its highest peak at 24.6%. Reached its highest. We don't need peak on there because we've got superlative, yeah? Reached its highest ever at 26.6%, good. Whereas the poverty threshold increased by 14%. Very good vocabulary there. Thus, it is conclusively clear that many times democracy has been used for the benefit of capital markets, even when it meant jeopardizing democracy and the electorate. So I can't see good use of that sentence, and we almost got it perfect. We just needed the electorate, but I can't see, after reading this, how democracy was kind of threatened. I understand how it was kind of threatened, yeah, but we didn't make it explicitly clear with your arguments. Okay, so let's just see. This is something that times has been. Let's see. So we've refloated it. So we need to make it explicitly clear that the government had to basically borrow from the Spanish public pension system to fund the private sector, even though there were no votes for this policy. You see, now we can see the impact of basically the capital markets or the failed banks in the private sector and how they are shaping and the impact they have on democratic policies. Okay, because that's what the main argument is about. So we need to make it explicitly clear. We cannot rely on the knowledge of the reader. So just be careful there. And also remember, Alfonso, it's not the quality of the argument. It's the quality of the text, the quality of your writing that's going to get you the points. So just be careful if you want to explain complex ideas and arguments. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that not only in the cases I cited, but also in many other governments and policies, they adhere to the rules, they adhere to the rules of global capital markets instead of governing for the electorate. So let's see. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that not only in the cases I cited, but also in many other governments and policies, democratic governments have to follow the rules of the global capital markets or are influenced by the global capital markets. Yeah? Here is the problem. Yeah, so if we just delete the R, we probably can get away with that. But also in many other governments and policies, adhere to the rules of global capital markets instead of governing for the electorate. Yeah, just delete that R and we're good. It is predicted that when democracy becomes aware of the necessities of the electorate, it will govern by them and for them. Good finish. Excellent work. So you know what to do now. Implement all the corrections that you've heard, update your error list, and then send me back your corrected essays. Write 2 new essays from the PDF you've got, and then check those essays for mistakes that you've made, and also try reorganize those sentences and go for clarity. And also, if your argument is complex, try break it down into a more simple argument. It's better to have a simple argument expressed eloquently than a complex argument expressed mediocre. Okay, because at the end of the day, it's a language exam. A language is communication, so we want to go for clear, effective communication. Okay, Alfonso? Y que tengas un buen día. Adeu.